The air in this reclaimed substation hums, thick with ozone and the ghost of old nicotine. Dust motes dance in the single neon tube, a sickly green. Hand-labeled vinyl stacks lean against dead server racks, smelling of forgotten decades, while the war surplus transmitter pulses with a stubborn electric heartbeat.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Across St. Marie, the dial sits at 83 Fahrenheit under clear. Winds are moving from the northeast at 10 miles per hour. In London, UK, judges have begun hearing an appeal over Trinidad and Tobago's anti-gay law, a direct confrontation between inherited colonial statutes and the evolving architecture of human dignity.
This appeal before the UK Privy Council directly challenges Trinidad and Tobago's Sexual Offences Act, specifically Sections 13 and 16. These statutes criminalize buggery and serious indecency, exposing thousands of queer individuals to potential arrest and up to 25 years imprisonment, structurally impeding their full participation in civic life. One alternative path for the TNT government was to simply accept the 2018 High Court ruling that declared these sections unconstitutional, allowing decriminalization to proceed.
The ghost of 18th century British law still haunts the Caribbean, Togee, a toxic residue clinging to the vibrant, diverse cultural pulse of Trinidad and Tobago. This isn't just about statutes, it's about the lineage of prejudice, and who carries that burden next. The youth, demanding a future unburdened by inherited prejudice, or the state clinging to an obsolete blueprint.
Patching in a caller, the contrarian. You're on the signal. From that dossier to this one, a rock star welcome and human rights protests. Patching in a caller, go ahead.
Togee, this is the contrarian. You talk about lineage of prejudice, but what's the actual quantifiable cost of keeping these laws? How does this legal battle impact daily lives beyond abstract rights? Is there an economic toll on the community?
A sharp question, contrarian. The structural cost is immense. Studies from other regions indicate that such laws contribute to an estimated 1 to 2% GDP reduction due to discrimination, health disparities, and reduced economic participation. Our chosen next move here is advocating for legislative reform that directly centers consent and human rights as foundational pillars, pushing for proactive changes that dismantle this inherited architecture of prejudice, rather than just waiting for court rulings. This fosters a civic architecture where every individual's self-worth is structural, not contingent on outdated laws. Somewhere a capacitor creaks under the load, hot metal. The console keeps its lights and its secrets. From legal battles over personal autonomy, we pivot now to public accountability and corporate performance on another continent. Australia News Live, Pauline Hanson defends her UK fact-finding trip, while Qantas tops the airline punctuality table. Here we see a tension between the public's right to know how its money is spent and the metrics we use to define success.
Senator Hanson's self-described fact-finding trip to the UK raises questions about the allocation of an estimated odd $50,000 in taxpayer funds with few concrete outcomes publicly detailed. Meanwhile, Qantas's 80.8% April punctuality, while a statistical win, masks broader operational issues like baggage handling and staff shortages that impact thousands of travelers daily. An alternative for Hanson would have been to leverage remote consultations or domestic expertise for her research, significantly reducing the taxpayer burden.
Togee, it's a modern cargo cult, isn't it? One nation's leader seeking facts overseas, hoping foreign soil yields local answers, while domestic trust erodes. Qantas, a national icon, is judged by the clock, not the quality of the journey. This plays into a myth of efficiency over genuine care. Where is the architectural signal for provenance and responsible use of public trust?
Caller's on. Go ahead.
This is the contrarian again. Is punctuality really the peak achievement for an airline, or does it distract from deeper systemic issues like staff morale or customer service during actual disruptions? And what specific facts did Hanson bring back home for that $50,000 price tag?
These are critical discernment questions, contrarian. Punctuality is a single metric, not a holistic measure of passenger dignity. Our chosen next move is to demand greater transparency and a civic ledger for public funds, requiring clear, auditable outcomes for parliamentary travel. For corporate entities like Qantas, we advocate for integrated reporting that prioritizes passenger well-being and clear compensation policies over just on-time performance, building a more resilient inner and civic architecture for travel. We now move to a global stage, where the lines between diplomatic fanfare and human rights advocacy are sharply drawn. A rockstar welcome and human rights protests converge to greet India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Australia, highlighting the dual narratives of international relations and structural ethics.
The Sydney Olympic Park Stadium saw an estimated 20,000 Modi supporters, a significant diaspora turnout, while parallel protests highlighted concerns over India's democratic health, including the Citizenship Amendment Act and treatment of religious minorities. This duality exposes the Australian government to accusations of prioritizing trade benefits over universal human rights principles, creating a structural tension. One alternative was for the Australian government to publicly raise specific human rights concerns during the visit, even while engaging diplomatically.
A rock star welcome for Modi, complete with stadium crowds, feels like a modern-day digital darshan, a ritual of reverence. But the parallel protests are the ancestral voices, the drumbeat of conscience, reminding us that true national architecture includes the dignity of every citizen, not just the leader. This cultural weave shows the pull between perceived national pride and the demand for ethical provenance.
The cost, contrarian, is a weakening of the very consent that underpins international relations and domestic trust. Our chosen next move here is to advocate for diplomatic engagement that explicitly integrates human rights dialogues into economic partnerships, ensuring that trade does not override the structural imperative of dignity for all citizens. We are designing a framework where alliances are built on shared values, not just transactional gains.
Togee. It feels like we're constantly patching systems that were never designed for true consent or shared provenance. My antenna's buzzing with a different idea. A global dignity data stream, open source and community governed, that aggregates human rights reporting independent of state or corporate filters. This would bend the rules of information flow, giving verifiable, decentralized context to these diplomatic dances.
Keelan, that's the kind of systemic reimagining we need. A dignity data stream directly asserts the structural self-worth of individuals, ensuring their stories and struggles are not contingent on external validation or political convenience. It's about turning confusion into actionable vectors for a more just architecture.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Continue the signal at TogeeVision.com. Tune in, Sparks and Stories. Gig Passport.